You'd think I'd be biting at the bit to play a new Star Wars title, particularly one about the Jedi Order set in my favorite time period during the Galactic Civil War. But I really wasn't. To me, the majority of the gameplay that had been shown before release looked like your by-the-book third-person linear action game. At best, it might be another Soul-style wannabe hardcore title. At worst, a bargain bin romp through a set of set-piece battles. And it's a bit of both, honestly. But it borrows from other games like Metroid and Souls competently enough to be a fun experience. But not one I'd recommend spending $60 on if you're on a budget and looking for a deeper game. Particularly if you're only gonna buy one game this month. This title is AAA development through and through.
No one to fear.
Though it leans more towards the positives than the absolute boring trash we normally see from big budgeted releases, particularly from a publisher like EA. First, the positives. It's a damn fine looking game. From the jungles of Kashyyyk to the tomb worlds of Dathomir, the world space is crafted to an exquisite level of detail. The opening tutorial set in a shipbreaking yard. Oh, this poor Venators breaks my heart, it's my favorite ship. Running through the ship's guts shows how gorgeous the world space can be and how ridiculous the gameplay can be. But we'll get to that in a minute. Not all the worlds are to this level of intricacy. Temple ruins start to quickly look samey after about 20 minutes inside one, and they fill a decent amount of playtime. The sound design is on point. It has a great score that I'll definitely be using in my tabletop Star Wars games, as I know my players will enjoy having these epic tracks in the background. Even the stormtroopers have some of the best one-liners and reactions to fighting a Jedi. Probably the best I've ever heard in a Star Wars game.
Too scared.
You legitimately start feeling bad for them. So why am I so lukewarm about Fallen Order? Putting aside the fact that EA has held on to the license for 7 years for Star Wars and has only managed to crank out 3 games, 2 of which have the words Battlefront grafted onto their decaying corpses, it's the gameplay loop. Run down an obvious linear path, climb only where the world space tells you to climb, jump, shimmy until you reach the next fight. Sure, the worlds have branching paths, but they're generally locked until you gain some kind of power or upgrade to your droid that lets you backtrack and unlock those avenues. The backtracking pain is offset by well-designed spaces that guide you more naturally through these areas as you get new powers. It's something that's lifted right out of the Metroid series, getting a power and then unlocking a different path and having to go back to past levels. But it doesn't change the fact that you're largely running from set piece to set piece along the same metal grids, swinging ropes, and familiar wall running textures. I think it's gonna be great for speedrunners. They're going to love this, as you can run from point A to point B and never stop. Eventually you'll come to a campfire, meditation point, that acts as a save and character customization spot to use up those skill points that you've unlocked, or to rest. A la Dark Souls, regenning your health and getting your heal pots refilled. Stim packs refilled. Joking aside, I actually enjoy this mechanic. Choosing whether it was worth resting and getting my supplies back, knowing it means all my enemies will respawn, was one of the few avenues where I felt like I almost had a choice. Player choice and achievement, it's a big part of why I love gaming. It's an interactive medium, and in Dark Souls, it's choosing the path you want to take, the character builds that you want to go for, your weapons, your gear. In the first 3 hours of Fallen Order, you feel like you're almost completely devoid of choice. Don't get confused by looking at the branching skill trees in any of the media they put out. This is not an RPG. It's got a leveling system that has nothing to do with stats, just skill points that unlock powers. Sure, it's got that leveling system for unlocking skill points, but till you're about halfway through the game, you're basically funneled down certain skills. Things start to open up once you get your hands on Force Push. Fallen Order shines when you get into multi-foe combat in larger areas, and you unlock a few abilities. When things click, you'll be time-blocking blaster bolts back at stormtroopers and dodging energy baton, which makes you feel like a total badass, though it's not perfect. Your character can get nailed by moves that obviously missed because you did a jump flip instead of a dodge. Dodge gives you invincibility frames on some enemy attacks. Getting a hit can quickly lead to your character getting repeatedly beat down at successive attacks from NPCs, with death sending you back to the last meditation spot you used. Any experience you had gained, by the way, is locked into that enemy who killed you, and if you want it back, you have to do some damage to the target to get it back. It's another riff on Dark Souls that works, mostly. Because of the largely linear nature of the levels, I never found myself ever having a reason to not follow the path back where I died, as I had to go that way anyways to continue the story. Enemies are scary and they'll kick the crap out of you, but it leaves out the deep levels of character customization, stats, and gear and replayability. We're also hungry for a Star Wars title that one that even remotely seems good looks great, but it lifts the backtracking, powers unlock new areas from Metroid, but only lightly touches on some of the more intricate puzzles that Metroid is known for. I'm not going to touch too deeply on the story in this video as it deserves its own video, but just know you're playing a blank character here. He's got little in the way of personality. I equated him at one point during the stream to a wet cabbage. His supporting cast, on the other hand, is fantastic. I'd even say the average stormtroopers have more interesting lines than Cal does.
That song, I wrote it years ago. You touch an object and witness events connected to it. You feel its history.
It's an echo in the force from the object.
Not many Jedi have that skill.
How would you know that?
Visually, it's stunning. The voice actors did an amazing job bringing some of these other characters to life. Saw Gerrera is back, as you guys have probably seen from the trailer, so that's not really a big spoiler there. The combat is fun, but not necessarily fluid. When it works, it feels great. Character customization is almost a joke. You can change out the poncho color that the main character has. You can paint the ship that he doesn't actually own. And you can give your little droid companion different paint jobs. And that sums up character customization. Oh, and the lightsaber has its own bit of customization that can go into it. Is it worth a buy? Sure. The story thus far is enjoyable, the voice acting is on point, and the set piece moments are good enough that you'll play just to want to see the next one. But if you're going to get only one game this November or December, I wait on Fallen Order. And be warned, as you get into the game, the first 3 hours are incredibly boring from a gameplay perspective. The set pieces are wonderful, but without all the options like even having a heavy attack, which by the way uses force power, they're very stingy on the amount of force power you can get. If you want to do a heavy attack once you unlock it, it actually uses up some of the force power that you've got. Oh, I'm out of force, so I can't do my heavy attack. Good thing you telegraph like crazy, pal. So you can do a force push, or do any of your force abilities, or you can just do your heavy attack. Now, speaking about character customization and player choice, one of the things that I find completely bizarre about this is how they've dealt with the force powers. You have a limited amount of force, we'll say mana or resource, that you can use during a fight. Hitting enemies will regenerate some of those force powers, but you don't get a lot back. You can increase this by some skill points you can put in to give you more power, or you get more back from your enemies. Now, when you finally unlock a second attack, you start with your light one. When you get your heavy attack earlier in the game, surprisingly, the heavy lightsaber attack, which would normally be risk versus reward when using in any other game, also uses force powers. So, you can force push, or force slow, or use any of those other abilities, or you can do your general heavy attack. This means you're gonna stay away from using those heavy attacks for more than just the fact that it's gonna slow you down for the long windup, because you're probably gonna wanna use force abilities, meaning you only have one attack button for the majority of the game, which is your light attack. I find this decision completely bizarre and really frustrating. When you see an opening, you've got the great timing, you go for that heavy attack, and then you get this error message saying you're out of force powers and you can't swing a lightsaber. Am I enjoying it? Sure. As a Star Wars title, it is probably one of the best on the market right now. That's not saying much, as we don't have any other Star Wars games to compare it to. Are there better third-person action games out there? Absolutely. Should you buy this one then? Wait till it goes on sale and pick it up for relatively cheap. $60 out the gate. It's a bit much for what people are saying is a 12-hour experience at the moment. People are ripping through it pretty quickly in the Armco community. But I'd like to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments below. How have you been enjoying it if you've already picked it up? Would you recommend it? What are your highlights and your low lows? For me, I think the biggest problem is it is bare bones as you can get for a third-person action game. The combat is great. The Stormtrooper AI is wonderful, how they work together, and I'd love to see that in a more intricate or deeper experience that gives players a way to actually express themselves in the game in more ways than just run to the next fight, the next objective down the linear path. Anyways, my name's Captain Shaq. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.
Try again.
It's difficult, Master.
Yes, the path is difficult. It may seem impossible, but with persistence and the Force as your ally, you will overcome any obstacle. You will master any path,